Sujaya Ratti holds a master's degree in economics with honors from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, and also has a master's in community and regional planning from Iowa State University. She is a principal research scientist at CSTEP. She has 15 plus years of experience in the field of integrated land use transportation research and planning in India and the USA. Her work involves development of a decision-making tool for transportation that incorporates aspects of mobility, coverage, environment friendliness, equity, affordability, energy needs, etc. Recently, she has helped the Planning Commission, Government of India, to develop future development scenarios for India based on systems analysis. So, now over to Sujaya. According to you, why is urban transport so important today?
Let me start with some global numbers. By 2030, 6 out of 10 people will live in cities. Transport contributes to 14% of GHG emissions. Motorized transport contributes to 80% of the GHG emissions in a city. 1.3 million people are killed in road-related traffic accidents. By 2030, it will be the 5th top causes of death in the world. Traffic hurts the economy. Congestion costs account to 10% of national income in some countries like Lima, Peru. And above all, transport is the crucial link between shelter and livelihoods and opportunities. Thus, urban transport policies serve an integrated agenda. It has a multi-sector impact and thus need to be carefully designed, planned and implemented.
So, based on your analysis, according to you, what is the status of urban transport in India?
India is going through an urbanization process. There is an expanding urban footprint, approximately 200 million urban population increase by 2030. There is an increase of about 54% in the number of urban areas in the last decade. Cities are engines of growth and cities will account for 70% of the GDP by 2030. And with that, we see urban sprawl, overall population increase, lack of effective planning and land use controls have encouraged sprawl rapidly in all directions. And another aspect which is neglected in India is the urban poor, the mobility needs of the urban poor, especially employment-related mobility needs.
So, do you think there could be some challenges?
There are challenges which are related to, one could be on planning, and which has also resulted in the change in urban travel behavior, where we have registered motor vehicles with around 115 of the million motor vehicles. In contrast to the personal mode, the share of buses in total registered vehicles have declined. It is important to note that the cars and two-wheelers constitute approximately 86% of the vehicles on the road, but constitute only 29% of the trips, which is almost equivalent to our walking trips. But our policies and the projects that we see on ground do not cater to this dichotomy. This has actually resulted from inefficient and ineffective planning, lack of institutional challenges, there are fragmentation in responsibilities, and also a lack of capacity in the planning as well as in the institutional categories or institutional aspects in planning. And one important thing that has deterred good analysis, and planning is the lack of data availability, lack of good quality data.
What about funding gaps?
There are some funding gaps which also arise, some of it also arises for the lack of capacity, where grants are there for the local urban bodies, but there is lack of utilization due to lack of capacity. And also there is the natural gap, because the infrastructure gaps are so huge that we first need to manage our local and current needs, and also our future needs. So the funding gap is immense.
Okay. So based on this, what according to you could be the sustainable transport path for India?
In the urban transport context, transport is a derived demand. To understand sustainability in this system, it is important to first look at the functions from which it is derived. In the urban context, it is important to understand that transport is linked to livelihood opportunities, both public and private, housing, education, healthcare, recreational facilities, and other social and cultural attractiveness. The quality of a life in the city is dependent how accessible we are to these services. So in this context, sustainable transport path is defined. So the traditional approach for transport has been as predict and accommodate. It is like if you are putting on weight, you take the next size dress, and if you keep putting on weight and you go to the next size, and so on. But that has not really solved the urban transport issues. It has made it more complex. So the new paradigm or the new approach to urban transport planning is avoid, shift, and improve. Avoid is how do we reduce the demand for mobility? How do you reduce the need for travel by motorized means? So it can be through technological innovation, through land use design, adequate sustainable options for travel, use of information and communications technology may encourage telecommuting, e-commuting solutions. For example, Bangalore One is a one-stop place which you can pay your bills, get your tickets booked, even movie tickets, and it reduces the need for travel to the n number of vendors. The next approach is the shift. Now, but there are some trips that you cannot help but do it. So what should be done? How do people travel? So we shift to more sustainable trips, more sustainable modes of transport. Measures like safe pedestrian and non-motorist access to public transport, stops, information on public transport systems, seamless connectivity between modes, high costs of personal vehicle use, congestion cost, parking, fuel, road space, priority allocation for pedestrian and non-motorized and public modes will help in inducing the mode shift towards more sustainable modes. However, a 10% modal shift towards low carbon modes will not be possible. So what should be done to ensure this shift to sustainable means of transport? The next is to improve the use of clean vehicle technology, alternative fuels, high efficiency standards for personal as well as public buses and other transport means will help reduce emissions from vehicle use. However, this technological improvement may not be able to reach sustainable goal if demand management measures are not adopted in tandem along with a functional public transit system. However, there is a dilemma. It is important to be cognizant of the needs of all the different types of people, different socio-economic groups, and they might be conflicting. The needs of the low-income population may be to have good facilities and conditions for walking and cycling, which would mean lower speed levels for motorized transport. Segregation of road space, which would mean inconvenience to car users. Similarly, increased journey speed levels would mean reduction in emissions but might be a safety concern for cyclists and pedestrians. Reduction in travel demand may need policies that are detrimental to car users but serve the environmental issues. So the challenge lies in balancing the needs and demands of the various sections of the society in a manner that is sustainable to the society as a whole. However, the good news is that we can still do it. Our future will depend on the choices that we make today. Beijing has twice the national average in GHG emissions, while New York has half the national average. In safety, Sweden's Vision Zero aims at having 0 deaths per year by the year 2020. In 1997, they had 124 deaths per year, and which they've reduced due to almost 3 deaths per year in 2011. Social inclusion can happen, as we see in the Lagos bus transport system in 2011, which carried 2 lakh passengers daily with 30% decrease in fare, despite 100% increase in fuel price, leading to a reduction of transport costs by 40%. Even productivity and economic activities can increase with sustainable choices, like at the closing of traffic to motorized traffic in Times Square. Saw 10,000 people at 11 p.m. So it's a myth that pedestrian-only streets reduces economic activity. So it is a choice we make. If we have a $1 million, do we spend it on 400 kilometers of BRT, or 40 kilometers of a light rail system, or 14 kilometers of elevated rail, or 7 kilometers of a metro or a subway? The choice is ours.
Thank you so much, Sujaya, for that wonderful information which you had researched on urban transport.
There will be some